Ellis worked the night shift at Grencore Logistics, a sprawling warehouse tucked into the outskirts of the city's industrial zone. It wasn't glamorous, just endless aisles of pallet racks, the soft hum of forklifts during the day, and silence after dark. He was a quiet guy, content to be alone, with his job mostly consisting of checking surveillance feeds and handling late shipments. The warehouse transformed at night. The whir of machines stopped. Lights dimmed. Shadows stretched wider. Every creak echoed. Grencore had 6 storage sections, each labeled and color-coded. But there was one part of the blueprint that didn't match up. A small space between sections 5 and 6 showed a wall where none should be. Ellis had stumbled on it while reorganizing digital blueprints for a safety inspection. At first, he assumed it was a labeling error. He mentioned it to a day supervisor once. The man froze mid-sentence, then brushed it off with, probably just a wall cavity. Structural stuff, nothing you need to worry about. The way he said it was too quick, too final. That made Ellis curious. One night, a shipment arrived late. Ellis signed for it, then walked it down to Section 6 to prep for sorting. As he moved between tall metal shelves, he spotted something odd. A narrow corridor that didn't appear on any updated map. It was easy to miss, wedged between stacked crates and an old, unused rack. At the end stood a metal door with a keypad. No markings, no sign. He returned the next night with a flashlight. The keypad blinked red. He pressed random keys. Nothing. On instinct, he typed 0000. The light turned green, and the door clicked open. Inside was a long, rectangular room. No windows, just one flickering ceiling light. The walls were pale gray, the floor clean but dusty, like no one had stepped inside for years. A table sat in the center with a single chair pushed underneath it. On the far wall was an old filing cabinet, slightly ajar. Despite the stillness, Ellis felt watched. He entered slowly, noting how the air inside was colder than the warehouse. Not just temperature, it felt heavier, like it was holding its breath. The light above him buzzed and dimmed. He crossed to the cabinet and opened a drawer. Inside were folders, personnel records, shift logs, invoices, all dated from 2009. That was years before Grencore officially moved into the building. Most of the names he didn't recognize. One did stand out, Oliver Parrish. Ellis remembered the name from a news article. Parrish had been a night shift worker found dead in a warehouse years ago. Supposed heart failure. Case closed, no foul play. But Ellis remembered the odd details. The body was found locked inside a room no one remembered building. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind him. He ran to it. Locked. The keypad outside didn't respond from the inside. The room's light pulsed faintly, like it was syncing with a heartbeat. His. He tried not to panic. He pounded on the door. No sound returned. The warehouse cameras didn't cover this hidden hole. No one knew he was here. The temperature dropped further. His breath came out in mist. The light buzzed louder. The chair scraped an inch backward on its own. He stepped back. A low hum began to fill the space, the same pitch as the warehouse backup generators. But this wasn't mechanical. It felt alive. The cabinet drawer slid open. Papers fluttered out, scattering across the floor. The table shuddered, legs creaking. The walls seemed to pulse. Not shake, breathe. Then a voice. Not out loud. In his head. Sit. Ellis froze. His thoughts weren't his own. Something was inside the room with him, not visible, but very present. It didn't feel human. more like residue of something long forgotten, tied to the structure itself. He backed into the corner. The air thickened, his vision blurred. A sharp cold stabbed through his spine and his knees gave out. The room darkened until the single light turned blood red. Then the voice again. Listen. A memory not his own flooded him. A man, Oliver Parrish, trapped in this room, pleading to be let out, banging on the walls, losing track of time. The room didn't just trap you, it drained you. Days became hours. Sleep twisted into hallucination. He had written warnings in the cabinet, but no one read them. The room remembered pain. Ellis felt his own mind slippy. He screamed, grabbing the filing cabinet, toppling it over. One folder burst open, revealing a set of blueprints, one labeled Containment Room Q, scribbled in red ink, "Never open again." He crawled to the door. The keypad flickered. Then he remembered something. The entry code worked from outside. Maybe it could work in reverse. He reached up, his fingers shaking, and pressed 0000. Nothing. He hit it again. Still red. The hum grew louder. Stay. He ignored the voice, the cold, the crawling sense of dread. He pulled his phone and shined the flashlight at the keypad. Smudges. Faint fingerprints on 4 different numbers. 9, 2, 4, 1. He tried that sequence. 9241. Green. The door burst open. Ellis stumbled out, gasping. The corridor outside felt like fresh air after drowning. He didn't look back. The hallway seemed longer now, as if the room had shifted it, as if it didn't want to let him go. He ran. Back through Section 6, through the aisles, out into the loading bay. The warehouse lights flicked on as motion sensors picked him up. A forklift's shadow twitched near the far end, unmoving. Ellis didn't stop until he reached the security office. He pulled up the footage. No camera had caught him entering the hallway, as if it didn't exist. The next day, he filed a report about an electrical fault in Section 6 and took a week off. When he returned, the corridor was gone. No door, no keypad, just stacked pallets against a concrete wall, as if it had never been there. But Ellis knew better. Whatever the quiet room was, it hadn't been built for storage. It was a prison for something unseen, and it could still be watching. He kept the blueprint, the one labeled Containment Room Q. It now sits folded in the bottom drawer of his desk at home. He hasn't opened it since. But some nights, when he turns off the lights, he swears he hears a faint hum. Waiting. Ray never liked the night shift, but after the layoffs at his last job, Grencore Supply was the only place still hiring. The warehouse loomed on the edge of the industrial district, an echoing cathedral of concrete, steel racks, and half-dead lights. It was built for volume, not people, and it showed. During the day, forklifts buzzed and supervisors barked orders. At night, it just waited. The silence wasn't comforting. It pressed in on you. Ray was 3 weeks in, used to the rhythm. Show up at 10, clock in, scan manifests, shift stock, clock out by 6. The pay wasn't bad. He didn't mind being alone. Mostly. The other night shifters were scattered across the property. You could go hours without seeing anyone. That night, Ray was assigned to Zone B, overflow inventory in the western wing. He hated Zone B. Everyone did. It was underlit, colder than the rest of the warehouse, and had a faint chemical smell in the air no one could quite identify. The shelves there were older, scratched from years of shifting pallets. A forklift once caught fire back in that section, according to warehouse gossip. Since then, no one liked working there. By 2:15 a.m., Ray had already catalogued 3 aisles, scanning boxes and cross-referencing product codes. He was almost done. Just the last row near the far wall left. He rolled his cart toward it, humming faintly to fill the silence. His footsteps echoed oddly, too sharp, as if the acoustics back there didn't match the rest of the warehouse. He paused at the end of the aisle. 3 pallets stood side by side. 2 were wrapped in clear film, properly tagged. The third stood alone. Pallet 513. The number was handwritten on all 4 sides, thick black marker, crude uneven strokes, unlike anything else on the floor. Ray frowned. Pallets were never labeled manually. Everything at Grencourt ran through inventory control. He pulled out his handheld scanner and tried to check it. Error, unknown item. He checked the manifest. The last recorded item in Zone B was Pallet 512. Ray adjusted his headset. This is Ray in B sector. I've got an untagged pallet here. Looks like number 513, but there's no record of it. Anyone else working near Zone B? Silence. Just the low hum of the overhead lights. He tried again. Dispatch, come in. Only static. Ray lowered the radio and approached the pallet slowly. The shrink wrap was dusty, not aged exactly, just neglected. Like it hadn't been touched in years. It was too clean to be moldy, but something about it looked off. Like it had been opened and rewrapped in a hurry. The overhead lights flickered. A cold breath of air brushed the back of Ray's neck. He turned fast. Nothing there. He faced the pallet again, and after a moment's hesitation, slit the wrap with his utility knife. The plastic crinkled, loud and unnatural in the stillness. Inside were identical brown boxes. No logos, no stamps, no dates, just blank cardboard. He pulled one out and opened it. Coveralls, heavy gray, folded tightly. He held them up. No tags, no sizing information. Stiff with age, they looked barely worn, but old. The kind of old that wasn't from time, but from being forgotten. At the bottom of the box lay a faded ID badge, cracked plastic, yellowed edges. It read, Henry M. Grencourt Supply, forklift operator. Ray blinked. He knew that name. Henry Miles. He'd seen it on the memorial wall in the break room. Died 7 years ago. Forklift accident. The photo showed a cheerful guy with a mustache wearing gray coveralls. The same kind in the box. Ray dropped the badge. He looked at the other boxes. There were more coveralls inside. Dozens. Each one accompanied by a badge. Different names, different faces. All former employees. Some of them he recognized. Not from memorials, but from the people who had stopped showing up, people nobody talked about anymore. He stood up, heart racing. A cold draft moved through the aisle again. He heard it then, shuffling, far off. Ray spun. The motion lights didn't trigger. The darkness beyond the last row remained deep and still. He turned his scanner light on. The beam caught on something near the shelving. Just a glimpse. A shoe. Then it was gone. Ray stepped back. The silence now wasn't just silence. It was watching him. He backed up, pulling out his radio again. This is Ray. If anyone can hear me, I'm in Zone B and I need assistance. There's someone, in here with me. The radio crackled faintly, then stopped. No voice, no static, just dead air. He left the box on the pallet and stepped away, fast walking down the aisle. The temperature had dropped noticeably. His breath misted faintly. That wasn't normal. The warehouse didn't get that cold. As he turned toward the main corridor, something clattered behind him. He looked back. The pallet had shifted. Not fallen, not collapsed, just moved, rotated slightly, like it had turned to face him. Ray broke into a run. He passed shelf after shelf, the scanner light bouncing off boxes and beams. The air grew heavier. He was sure he heard footsteps now. Slow, synchronized. He reached the supervisor kiosk near the corner of the zone. It had a window facing the floor and an emergency phone. He slammed the door shut, locked it, and grabbed the receiver. No dial tone. He flicked the power switch for the overhead security feed. The monitor buzzed to life. 4 grainy black and white panels. Zone A, empty. Zone C, empty. Loading dock, flickering light. Zone B, static. He squinted. Then the static parted for a second, enough to reveal a row of shelves, and someone walking. Not quite walking, gliding. A figure in gray coveralls, head down, unmoving arms. Then another behind it. Ray staggered back. They were coming down his aisle. He could hear it now, shuffling, dragging footfalls. Not fast, but steady, intentional. He killed the monitor and grabbed the emergency flashlight from under the desk. Its battery was low, the beam faint. He waited. Breath shallow, nothing outside. He crept to the door, unlocked it quietly, and eased it open. The warehouse stretched out in silent stillness. No figures, no movement. He took a step, then another. Something moved in his peripheral vision. He snapped the flashlight toward it. A shape disappeared behind the racks. Too fast. He didn't wait to see more. He sprinted toward the front of the warehouse, dodging forklifts and pallets. Every footstep felt like it echoed for miles. As he passed Zone A, he saw something that stopped him cold. Pallet 513, sitting in the middle of the aisle. Unwrapped, boxes open, coveralls scattered on the floor like discarded skins. The badges were laid out neatly in a line. At the end of them, a fresh one. Raymond T. Grencore Supply, night shift. He stared, heart pounding. Then a hand slammed onto his shoulder. Ray screamed and spun. It was Marcus, the night supervisor. Bleary-eyed, coffee in hand. "Jesus, Ray, you okay?" Ray backed away, eyes darting. Where were you?" "In the control office. Lost signal to Zone B's cameras. We thought maybe the power flickered." He frowned. "What happened to you? You're white as a sheet." Ray looked back down the aisle. The pallet was gone. No boxes, no badges, just an empty stretch of concrete floor. He swallowed hard. There was something in Zone B. Someone. Marcus raised a brow. "You sure?" Ray didn't answer. He just nodded slowly. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "Take a break. Come sit up front. We'll check the footage." Ray followed, silent, casting one last glance over his shoulder. Far at the end of the warehouse, where the light barely reached, a faint shape lingered between 2 shelves, watching. And then it was gone. Mason didn't mind night shifts. In fact, he preferred them. No customers, no small talk, no distractions. Just silence and a checklist. He'd been working at Halverson Freight for barely a month, a sprawling warehouse just outside the city limits. Massive storage racks, high ceilings, and rows upon rows of crates and containers. Most nights, it was quiet enough to hear his own footsteps echo. It was his kind of job. The shift started like any other. He arrived at 10 p.m., scanned his badge, nodded at the yawning security guard in the booth, and walked inside. The warehouse lights flickered to life in sections as motion sensors picked him up, but the far corners stayed in shadow, always a beat behind. That delay never sat right with him. His duties were simple: inventory checks, random inspections, and occasional photo logs of damaged stock. Zone C was his assignment for the week, the far side of the facility where older freight was kept. Most of it was untouched for months. He grabbed his handheld scanner and began walking the aisles. A soft mechanical hum filled the air, along with the subtle buzz of overhead lights. The air smelled like cardboard, metal, and the faint scent of motor oil, the kind that never truly left the concrete. As he walked deeper into Zone C, the silence felt thicker. The ceiling fans here didn't spin. A few lights stuttered in place. It was colder in this part of the warehouse, too. A subtle, creeping kind of cold that soaked into the back of his neck. Mason shook it off and got to work. For the next hour, things went smoothly. He scanned crates, checked serial numbers, jotted down notes. Occasionally, the scanner would lag or freeze, forcing him to restart it. Nothing unusual. But then, somewhere around 1:45 a.m., the air shifted. He'd just scanned a row of sealed crates when he heard something. A soft scrape, like a box being dragged across the floor. Not loud, just enough to be unmistakable. He paused, looking down the long aisle between racks. Nothing. He waited, listening. Silence. He exhaled and returned to his task. A few minutes later, the sound returned. Closer this time, like the quiet scuff of shoes across cement. He turned sharply. Again, nothing. Probably the building settling, he muttered to himself, though the explanation felt thin. Still, he wasn't about to let nerves get the better of him. He moved on to the next aisle where the crates were stacked higher and closer together, blocking much of the overhead light. He flicked on his flashlight, casting long shadows across the floor. He froze. One of the crates ahead was open. It was marked "Secured Inventory, Do Not Access" in faded stencil. The lid was shifted, not fully off, but ajar enough to reveal the edge of something wrapped in black plastic. That crate hadn't been opened before, he was sure of it. Mason stepped closer, nudging the lid. Inside were several tightly bundled shapes, not labeled, not catalogued. One of them had torn slightly at the corner, revealing the edge of what looked like a mannequin limb. Glossy, flesh-colored plastic. No joint markings, no serial tag. He stepped back, uneasy. A mannequin. Why here? The handheld scanner gave a shrill beep. Error message. Unrecognized inventory. Scan aborted. He tried again. Same error. Then another sound. Not scraping this time. Breathing. Shallow, deliberate breathing coming from behind one of the crates. Not his own. Not imagined. He swung the flashlight around. The beam shook. No one there. He backed away slowly, trying to calm himself. Okay. Maybe someone else is here, he whispered. Security? Another worker. He grabbed his radio. This is Mason in Zone C. Anyone near the back aisle? Just heard something. Over. Static. He adjusted the dial. Repeat. I might not be alone back here. Can someone check cameras? Nothing. Not even static now. Just silence. His flashlight flickered. Then something moved. Not a full movement. Just a subtle shift. A shadow sliding across the far end of the aisle, ducking just out of sight. Mason's chest tightened. Hey, he called, voice cracking. You're not supposed to be back here. No reply. He didn't wait. He turned and walked quickly back toward the main corridor. intending to head for the security office. But when he reached the main aisle, the motion lights didn't activate. Darkness stretched ahead. Pitch black. He turned his flashlight down the hall. The beam reached only halfway before it hit a wall of black. That didn't make sense. This aisle was straight. It didn't end there. He took a cautious step forward, then another. And the light didn't reach further. He shone the beam left and right. But there were no racks now. No labels. Just blank space. The warehouse wasn't built like this. He'd walked this path a dozen times. There should have been 4 aisles to the left, 3 to the right, and the forklift station straight ahead. Now, nothing. "Mason," a voice whispered. He spun around. No one. The flashlight beam trembled in his grip. The voice had come from behind one of the sealed crates. He stepped backward, heart pounding, eyes darting. Something had changed in the air. A pressure, like the walls of the warehouse had shifted, stretching further apart, or closing in. He bolted. He ran past the rows of crates, zigzagging through aisles, trying to find a landmark, a door, anything familiar. Everything looked wrong. The crates all looked the same. The racks had no labels. The scanner refused to power on. The flashlight dimmed further with each step. He finally stopped at a junction and turned in a slow circle. Then he saw it. Something new. A door. Set into the side of a storage container that hadn't been there earlier. Metal, industrial, with no handle, just a single black keypad. He approached cautiously. The door vibrated softly, as if something inside was breathing, waiting. He didn't touch it. Instead, he turned away. And there it was again. The original aisle, literature normal. The yellow striped floor he recognized. The mop bucket leaning against the emergency exit. He nearly wept. He ran. He didn't look back. He didn't stop until he reached the clock-in station near the breakroom. He swiped his badge. The scanner gave a cheerful beep. The lights here were steady, warm, buzzing. He looked behind him. Nothing followed. He walked outside into the cool night air and collapsed on the curb near the security booth. The guard was inside, headphones on, watching something on his phone. Mason didn't say anything. He just sat there, breathing. By morning, he'd made up his mind. He emailed his resignation and never returned. Whatever he'd seen, whatever shifted in that warehouse, he wasn't going back to find out.